Yeah, for some reason that first half of the lecture still didn't record properly. Sorry about that. Let's look at the long run versus the short run. In microeconomics, the short run, what happens, labor varies but capital is fixed. Well, at least one output is fixed in the short run of micro. We tend to assume that is capital. The long run then, labor and capital vary. In other words, in the long run, nothing is fixed. However, in macroeconomics, short run aggregate supply, what happens is that the actual price level differs from the expected price level. In other words, we have sticky nominal wages. Because of that, the real wages vary. Another way of saying that is that a change in the price can lead to a change in output. So output produced varies, but the full employment level stays the same. The total amount of labor is the same, the total amount of capital, the level of technology, all of that stays the same. The only thing that differs is the amount of labor that we end up employing. And why does that change? Because the nominal wage level is sticky. And so the real wage varies. It's not constant. So the economy can operate at either above or below full employment levels, and we have an upward sloping curve. What does that look like? Upward sloping aggregate supply. In the long run, what happens is that all prices are variable, and that includes wages, and therefore there's no change in relative prices. In other words, a change in price does not lead to a change in output, because the real wage adjusts. The nominal wage adjusts according to the price level, so that the real wage remains constant. Output is then determined. So, is that a question? Output is then determined by the amount of labor in the economy, and labor and capital are fixed. The economy cannot produce above the full employment level of output. So you have vertical slope. You have a long run aggregate supply. Combination then, we have. So we have a vertical long run aggregate supply curve, horizontal short run aggregate supply curve. And then if you want to, you can talk about a very long run or something, which is to say what happens when there is a change in the quantity of the resources that you have available for production, or if the real price of the factors of production changes. Then we'll have a change in potential GDP, and that will shift both the long run and the short run aggregate supply curve. In other words, because the short run aggregate supply curve is simply a derivation of the long run aggregate supply curve, if we shift the long run aggregate supply curve from this blue curve to this red curve, we must also be shifting the short run aggregate supply curve from the blue to the red. Okay? So then I thought we could do some questions, just to iron out some issues and check that everyone's on the same page. So if we just look at the test 2 from last semester, so it says 2012 there, but that was a mistake. It is in fact the 2013 test. Here's 2 quick questions that we can do. Okay, so I want you to work in groups. 2 or 3 people at least, and I want you to have discussions on these 2 questions and then talk through the answers and make sure that we know what we're doing. Okay. Do you want me to read through it? You can read it yourself, right? Yeah? Okay, 2 minutes for the first one, 2 minutes for the second one, 5 minutes total. Raise your hand if you would like me to come and assist you with it. If you have any questions. Okay. So the first question, which of the following statements regarding the short run ASAE model is correct? Okay? So you're getting a short one. The first thing says a recessionary gap occurs when equilibrium real GDP is greater than the full employment level of GDP. So someone asked, what is a recessionary gap? Can someone tell me what a recessionary gap is? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, as far as I recall, back in like reading one or something, when we had the business cycle, there was a recessionary gap and an inflationary gap, right? So, same thing, recessionary gap is simply when we are below full employment. So, a recessionary gap occurs when equilibrium real GDP is greater than full employment. No. Okay. And I think I direct you to reading one if that's not something that you can that rings a bell. Go have a read of that. There was a picture of it as far as I recall. Okay, number 2. If an economy is originally at full employment, an increase in the real interest rate will result in the economy moving to below full employment. So what would happen in the short term? If you have an increase in the real interest rate, what happens in your ASAD model? Would someone put, I know Ben is ready. Does anyone else want to, which is a good thing. Does anyone else want to, because I heard some mutterings, does anyone want to put their hand up? S is obviously also ready. Yeah. The usual suspects, yeah. Okay, so an increase in the interest rate, what's that going to do? Decrease investment. With a decrease in investment, you have decrease in aggregate demand, which is to say, aggregate demand curve shifts to the left. If the aggregate demand curve shifts to the left, where will our new point of equilibrium be in our short-run ASAD model? It will be to the left of full employment, right? Draw it on a piece of paper if you are not convinced with what I'm saying. Number 3, if an economy is at an equilibrium real GDP level that is above full employment, an increase in the nominal wage rate will result in an increase in the price level. So what happens when there is a change in the nominal wage rate? Okay. Sure. So if you're at equilibrium that is above the full employment level, what's going to happen? Well, there's going to be an increase in nominal wages. With that increase in nominal wages, what happens to the short-run aggregate supply curve? As being correctly stated, shifts to the left. It's an increase in the costs of production. Left and shift in the short-run aggregate supply curve. And so we result in an increase in the price level. Correct. Let's draw that again, and I'll just show you again in the picture. Remember, what did we say when we move from point B to point C? Why do we move from point B to point C? The increase in nominal wages shifts the short-run aggregate supply curve to the left. If we had some level of demand, if we introduce some level of demand into this diagram, let's do it through this point. Initially, we would have, if we wouldn't move to point B, we would move from point A to some intermediate point because of our supply curve. Because of our aggregate demand curve. So let's call this intermediate point here A hat. Then from A hat, we would shift to C. So we would have a left-hand shift in the aggregate supply curve and an increase in prices. Okay, everyone happy with that? Sure, technology is just not working with us today. Okay, there you go. Okay, and then the second question, question 7. When employment is equal to the natural level of employment, the goods market and the financial market are both in equilibrium. Is that true? What do you think?
I think this is true because the food market and the financial market are also children are being supplied with African market. So the African is going to be that's where all the
That's right. If we are at the full employment level, then it means that our aggregate demand curve is intersecting our aggregate supply curve at the full employment level. Whether it's the long run or the short run, aggregate supply curve, it's intersecting both. And if we're on the aggregate demand curve, then what do we know about the goods market and the financial market? They are in equilibrium. Number 2, the labor market is in equilibrium. Yeah, we're on the long run aggregate supply curve. And actual prices are not equal to expected prices. No. If we're in the long run, if we're at that full employment level, then we know that what our expectations for prices are going to be, and what prices actually end up being must therefore be the same. So our real wage is remaining constant, so any changes in prices are being reflected in changes in nominal wages. Which means that the expectations of price changes must equal the actual price changes. Okay. That's it really for aggregate demand, aggregate supply.